Hey everyone, this is the host of the newest show, Poetry Worldwide. My name is Jessica Crenshaw. We want to invite poets, artists, spoken word artists, hip hop artists, singer songwriters to reach out to us. We are looking for interviewees. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your voice. We are officially on the iHeartRadio network, so we want to interview you, and in return, you can have your art performed in a global audience set. So once again, we are real poets on a real network. This is not a reality TV show. This is not for entertainment. This is to help to motivate, create, and to educate people out there that we are out here and we will be heard. So we hope you enjoy the show and stick close to the network. Hello, everyone. It is Jessica Crenshaw again here with another live episode of Poetry Worldwide. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, letting us know that you enjoy the network, that you enjoy the platform that we are making for poets. It's all about you. It's not about me. It's not about anything else. It's about real life with real artists. So once again, we just thank you so much for tuning in. So before we get started, we want to thank our WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network for providing us this platform to interview artists from around the world. And we just want everybody to know that with all of these differences going on, we are one people through poetry. So we really appreciate that network. We also want to thank Treasured Memories Graphics for hooking us up with a great logo. It's increased our engagement. It's increased how people interact with this network, with this show. So we just want to say thank you. We do have a couple of events going on. So we do have a virtual poetry slam going on. And the registration is a $10 donation to WITV7. It is tax deductible. So we want you to keep that in mind. And also the registration deadline is February the 28th. So you might want to get that in early. We will start recording in March, and we will start the voting in April, and April is National Poetry Month, so just keep that in mind. And you would want to go to www.wytv7.org/poetry slam to sign up. So definitely take a look. We have the rules posted, and we want you to be involved in that. This guest coming up is someone I have heard. She has come by a poetry group that I sponsored, and she has very, very dynamic truth. So we wanted to definitely get her set up with an interview so you guys can take a look and get to know the woman behind the microphone. So it is with very, very great pride I want to introduce Miss Samantha Bowling. How you doing today, Samantha?
Great. I'm great. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
And we appreciate your patience. We kind of had some snafus, some change arounds with the show, the formatting. So we just appreciate you working with us and just glad to have you on here. So I was letting the listeners know that I've heard your stuff. I've heard your story, your testimony, and it definitely gives you a great versatility when you do your poetry. So we're just going to ask you a couple of questions. We're just going to vibe here, and then, we're just going to take it from there. So I always ask any artist that comes on the show how they started. So I definitely want to know, how did you start writing?
I definitely started writing in, I would say my earliest memory, maybe even middle school and into high school. And a lot of things that jumped out to me at the time were, well, being in high school, having crushes. So some things about love, and then some things about some racial inequalities, and things like that. And I wrote in high school. And I used to keep the notebooks and all those type of things. And then I got away from it in college, big time. And it really wasn't until I was saved, gave my life to God in 2006 officially and got saved, that writing came back to me.
Mm. Well, that's good. That's good. And I can understand that, you kind of walk away from writing, or maybe situations come up to where writing within that moment may not be your priority. So I can definitely understand, that juncture of being in it, then going away from it, and then definitely coming back to it. So you mentioned, getting saved, and then your writing started coming back. So what would you say influenced you the most? So what influences your writing the most when you're drawing from things?
Probably, well, first of all, I want to say that for me, poetry is a gift. I think that is one of my main gifts from the Lord. God really did give me that gift, and a lot, and it took a long time for me to say it in that manner. And I'm not being boastful, because we should never be boastful as Christians. I say it out of pure humility, that I am able to draw from my life experiences. And some of my pieces I drew from my best friend's experiences. It might not necessarily been my experience, but I may have had something similar to their experience. So I draw from that too. And then I have a lot of pieces that are Christ inspired, a lot of things that are about the things of God. And a lot of it is about my own personal, just testimony in general as being a saved woman. And especially when you're newly saved, you're so full of zeal. Nobody can tell you anything.
Yeah.
As a pastor would say, my pastor would say, you're on fire for the Lord. So when you're newly saved, you just want to jump in there, and you just want to do everything, and you want to explore everything, and it came back. Writing came back for me so easily that that's why I know this is something that God has ordained me to do, that it is my gift. Now, with that, I do struggle, because of course the enemy comes along, and the enemy tries to tell you in your mind, nobody cares about what you got to say. Nobody's listening to this. Nobody's going to read this. This isn't going to affect anybody. This isn't going to impact anybody. And so there's that struggle of it too, especially once you do become saved, because then now the enemy really mad at you, that you've
Sure.
become a soldier of God. So now the enemy really wants to attack you in your gifts. And so you always have to fight. You always have to, so that's a battle, that's a struggle. And I do have earlier pieces about that. But I also do draw from broken relationships that I've had in the past. So any piece that anybody hears from me, rather it be more secular, if you will, or not, I always reference the Lord, almost always. I don't think I have, but maybe a couple of pieces where I don't. But almost any piece you hear from me or read from me, there is a reference. God is in there somewhere.
That's good. I mean, I can definitely feel your passion as always, because I think anytime we interact, I always feel a fire or passion. I even advertise, like, you're gonna hear this lion from Memphis. She's a Leo, guy, so it's gonna be fire. So just watch out. Just keep it together. But she has a lot of passion, you guys, and you're going to see that very, very soon. She's going to perform something for us, so definitely stay tuned on that. Uh, so from here, that was really, really a good account, very passionate account. I did want to ask. I always wanted to ask you this: what do you feel is the purpose of your writing? And my follow-up question to that is, who do you wish to inspire? Who do you want your writing to touch after you say a piece?
My purpose in writing, number one, and this may come across selfish, so I apologize ahead of time. I write for myself because I'm writing from my own struggle, my own pain. I guess I pretty much answered that previous. To me, I don't need to be in front of thousands of people. I don't need to be viral. None of that, that social media would have you think. If just one person is touched by what they heard, or they related to that piece, or I struck a nerve with them, then I've set out to do my job. And I'm not always going to know that. Sometimes I get feedback, sometimes I don't. Sometimes when I perform in front of crowds, you know, there's the crowd reaction. There's that. But every so often, I'll get an individual message in an inbox somewhere, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or wherever they saw me. I'll get an individual message from somebody that was truly touched by what I said. And of course, I strike a lot of females, you know, a lot of, not to say that men don't appreciate what they hear from me, but because I am a female, so I can write from a female's perspective. You know, that's the main audience, if you will, that I'll get the most feedback from. Okay. So that's how I think about it. That's how I go about it. I don't write a piece. I don't write a piece with an agenda. You know, I don't go, oh man, they're gonna dig this. Oh, they're gonna love this. You know, I don't do that. You know, because I write what it is that I'm passionate about. I write what comes to mind. I write to what God gives me. You know, and some pieces I wrote like that, and other pieces I have took me months to put together because of you know, I wanted to get in the right, I don't know, vibe or energy or hear from God or whatever it was. So I don't rush my process in that aspect either. I don't know if I just answered your question, honey. I just
you got it check mark. We got it. No, you're fine. No, one reason why we wanted you on the show, Samantha, is because you speak your mind, and you speak from a very genuine spot. So yeah, to me, I mean, you answered the question, and you know, that's even the moniker of the show. You know, our goal is to just touch one person. So that's the Poetry Worldwide show, and then that's even the network. That's all we're setting out to do, is if we reach one person, then we're straight. We're good. You know, we can move on and move forward from there. But no, you totally answered it. You answered it very, very genuinely. And that's definitely something that we appreciate here on the show. So, you mentioned a lot about God, and that's one of the reasons why I really do like the poetry that you write. So I know especially the listeners want to know out there, how has God affected, first of all, your life, and then how has he moved on to affect your art?
Oh, honey. If anybody knew me from before, I mean, you know, I have a passionate personality. I'm a big personality. I mean, even on my job, my reputation precedes me, you know. But before, I would fight, drop of a hat, chip on my shoulder. I'd fight, you know, low self-esteem, all those things and stuff like that. And then after getting saved, of course, those things over time, you know, well, some things drop off instantly, and other things you have to work on as you go, because anybody who knows, who's been saved for any number of years, and any new believers that might be hearing this, is a process. You're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect, but I will not go back to what I used to be. I will not. It is a privilege. Anybody who's been saved, you know, it is a privilege to serve God. It is a privilege to be saved, you know. So the Lord affects me every day. There's not a day that I'm not talking to God or anything, you know, because that's who wakes me up every day. That's who sends me on my way. That's who's going to keep me in my right mind, you know. So I have no choice but to trust him and to serve him. And that I can't speak enough about the things that God has done for me, brought me through, and stayed with me through, you know, because once you're saved, that's not the end of it. You know, God's with you every step of the way. And so it's just all through my writing. I can't explain it. It's hard to, you know, it's just the things that come to me. You know, I have a whole piece about people being boastful. You need to recognize God is who you serve. God is who's been keeping you, you know. And I touch on everything. I touch on things in the church world, and I touch on things in the world in general, you know. So again, I don't know if I'm answering the question right, but
you got it. No, just be confident in that. I mean, I mean, I really believe that you did answer the question. You answered it with force, because I mean, I was saved in, I think it was like back in '96, and then I got believer's baptism, which is a part of the Baptist sect, back in '98. So I've been in the game for a while, and I realized what I've came from, and then every day it's still a daily walk. So I'm a warrior. You might be a fighter. I'm a warrior. I still have to get it in my head that I have to trust him with certain things. Because they call it in the South giving it over to the Lord, but then sometimes I'll take it back, and then only to have to give it right back to him. So I can definitely dig what you're saying. And I do. I see a lot of God, a lot of Christ, definitely a lot of thankfulness. You always seem to have a thankfulness piece in most of the writing that you have. So, and thank you for definitely addressing those new Christians out there that think that, once they get saved, their problems drop off. It don't. Sometimes it might look like it gets turned up even more, because just like you said, the enemy is coming towards you now. And even in the Bible, until God got his assignment to die for our sins, the enemy really didn't start messing with him until he got baptized. So I definitely understand that. Now, guys, Samantha's going to perform a piece for us. We just want to take a very quick commercial break. We're just going to give you some information about the show and how you can be a part of it. So she literally went from watching the show to being on the show. So we want to give you some quick information about that. We'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to WITV7. Can you make us your #1 listen to network? Visit us on the web at WITV7.org. Contact us. We are currently accepting guests to share their story of hope with our audience around the world.
Hey everyone, we are back. Thank you so much for staying with us during that commercial break. If you're just now tuning into the show, we are interviewing Miss Samantha Boeing, a very strong poetic presence here in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, before we broke for commercial, we were letting you know that she was about to perform a piece. So, Samantha, did you have a piece prepared? We definitely love to hear it.
Yes, I do have a short piece. It's called Where To Now.
All right. Just start whenever you're ready, hon.
Okay. I'm trying to go above and beyond, but it's not easy in a world that's like a ball of yarn when the loose end starts to unravel and is rolling on the floor down the hall past all the pictures of my life. My mother hung up one for each year. It seemed so promising, and she told me, "You can have whatever you want, dear." But now I'm grown, and life is here. I regret all those times I said I wanted to be on my own on one hand, but on the other, something says I can't go back to a desert land. I came from a place of no opportunity, graduated, no magna cum laude, but I made it. Nothing in this world could make me trade it. God blessed me with a career using my degree, but to a certain degree, I say, now what? What was my original dream? I wish I wrote it down. I wish I took more seriously that journal that I kept as a child. Everything's a blurred memory, so I'm starting back over now, tapping back into this poetry that is possibly my ministry and definitely my therapy. Thank you. That's that piece.
All right. You see, I leaned in. I mean, is there a part 2? Is there a feature or something? But no, definitely when, and for those who don't do stage poetry or spoken word, some of us try to look for that lean in where like the audience is just really kind of leaning into what you're saying. But that's one thing that poets have a very, very good grasp on. We know how to say a lot in maybe 30 seconds. So once again, if you are just now tuning in, please hit that back button. We are talking to the Samantha Boeing, the lion-hearted out of Memphis. I'm just too proud to have you on the show. So you shared a piece, and we want to kind of get into, we want you to talk to the listeners, to the writers out there. So I do want to ask, what words of encouragement do you have for that new writer, that new spoken word artist? Because we get a lot of new people watching the show, for guidance, since we've been in the poetry game for a long time. So what words of encouragement would you offer them?
I would definitely say, if you feel that poetry is your gift, if that's a calling for you, if that's something that's strong and passionate in you, then definitely go for it. Because we know as humans, we know what we're passionate about. And sometimes it's easier to write those words down than to say them. Now, I do spoken word, I do perform, as Jessica knows. And if you're a new writer, that doesn't mean you have to jump out there and do that unless you feel that you want to. But I wrote for quite some time before I ever started performing. I will let me back up and say that once I started back writing, which was 2006, my first open mic performance wasn't until 2009. Up until then, I did a couple of pieces at my church, and I don't want to knock that, because humble beginnings. Never knock your humble beginnings. I was only doing a couple of pieces in my church, and that was my church family, and I did not feel vulnerable in front of them. I felt safe. But when you go out into an open mic at a cafe or a restaurant or wherever it may be, and you're amongst people you never met, that can be intimidating. So don't get discouraged by that. Even if you listen to this, you've been writing for a while and you think you want to start expressing it, it's so much easier now with social media, with our phones. Everybody has cameras on their phones now, compared to when Jessica and I have been doing this,
the tough time, yeah.
Right, you had to set up some sort of camera or something like that. Now you can just do your iPhone or whatever you have, and you can start posting these things to Instagram, Facebook. You can even go live, and do these things live, and just put the stuff on YouTube even. So if you're a brand new writer, this is a passion in you, and as a passion in me, what's a gift for you. Don't suppress it. Don't suppress it. Don't listen to the haters. Don't listen, because not everybody gets it. And one thing we know in the poetry world, not everybody gets poetry. I still, to this day, introduce people to poetry and spoken word all the time, and so don't suppress your gift. Do not sit on your gift. Do not suppress your gift, whatever it is, because God gave you that gift. That's what my encouragement is to people today who might be brand new writers, or you've been writing for a while, but you think you might want to get into the spoken word world and poetry slams and open mics. Do it, because sooner or later you got to get into it. Just throw yourself into it. Don't give it a second thought. Just do it, and you'll just. When I do spoken word events, when I do open mics and all those type of things, I do it because I love to do it. It's expression for me. It's how I express myself. I don't worry about who doesn't like it and none of those things. I get my piece. I memorize my piece. That's just how I do it. A lot of people read off their phones or read off their journal, and that's okay too. You're expressing yourself, and you never know who's going to relate to you. You never know when you're going to say something that's going to encourage somebody. So I always say, keep going.
Definitely. Yeah. That is, new writers, that is veteran advice. And I mean, she is definitely correct. We were quickly thrown into, the road of the come up where, in order to get exposure, in order to let people know that you were a poet, you had to physically go out there and do it. So it's definitely a conversation between two poetic veterans right now. I've done spoken word. I did it in Arkansas and Memphis. And when it comes to spoken word, being up on stage, I feel like I'm retired. That's why I'm doing the show, to highlight different people. I've done it. I've done it before. It's just and what Samantha said is very true. You got to stay true to your heart. Me, I don't have a big need to get up on the stage anymore. What my passion is to provide the tools that I wish I had when I came up. Like a show like this, I would have been all you. I would have tried to interview what we say about 50-11 times. I would have tried to be 50-11. I would have tried to come on. But that's exactly what you do in the world. Like you see a gap and then you try to provide that. So now what people like me and Samantha are doing is we're providing an avenue that we wish we had when we were coming up. So that's definitely a lot of good information there. So Samantha, on the other side, since you are about motivation, I definitely want to make sure that you get your words out there. Now, you said that you were coming up and, you were a fighter and that you had some self-esteem issues. So if you could talk to our listeners, can you provide any sort of words of encouragement or maybe words that you would have wished somebody had told you when you were going through your situation? So what sort of words of encouragement would you give our listeners today?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say, if you don't know God, if you're not saved and you're watching this and you don't know the Lord, that's number one. That's number one. Once I didn't know who I was prior. I grew up in church and did the youth groups and the summer camps and all those things. But but once, I don't want to knock anything from the past, but just know that once you're saved and once you know who you are in God, everything else just falls into place. And that's and even with that, even after I got saved, I still battled with self-esteem and this bad relationship and that bad relationship. Why? Because I didn't stop and talk to God about it. Because I tried to take it and do it myself. And that's the problem, and people did try to tell me that. But I had to see it. I had to see it for myself. So number one factor for me for getting through some of the things I've been through is the Lord, number one. And then number two, the writing, because I write through that pain. I write through that pain, and I still perform. I still do open mics and spoken word and things like that. And of all the writings that I have, I don't perform all of them. There's just ones that kind of flow easier than others, if you will. So I don't know what anyone could have told me before, because I'm a strong, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm headstrong. I'm headstrong. I'm a Leo. I'm headstrong. So bullheaded. You know what I'm saying? I had to fall more than a few times to get back up, but the Lord was with me the whole time. But I say that right. That's your basis, right? That is your base right there. That is your base right there. Once you get saved and you're really into God and into His Word, and you really do start the trusting, and you really do start listening to the intuition, because we women have that special gift. All women have a special gift, intuition. If it don't feel right to you, don't do it. I don't care what nobody got to say around you. Be your own person and don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to be by yourself. Walk alone. Don't do that. The right people will come into place. I don't know who that's for, but that just came. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You already know this is how I get when we talk. So guys, this might be an interview, but this is really just the continuation of a long conversation that me and Samantha have pretty much already had. But you're
quite some time to anybody who's all the viewers right now. Her and I have not talked in quite some time. Matter of fact, I lived in Memphis for a while. I'm from Kentucky. I lived in Memphis for a while, then I moved to Baltimore, and now I'm back in Memphis. So we haven't even seen each other in person in a while. So it's almost like an old conversation, like she said. We like catching up.
It is, but guys, I mean, you just got your word of the day from Pastor Real Talk. So I want you to understand who you are speaking with, who is on your video box right now. So I mean, I have to second that emotion there. Really, that's where I started understanding who I was, because I mean, what I've always heard is that your spirit is a piece that God breaks off of Him and puts it in you. So
That's good.
when you become saved, you get reactivated. So it's almost like recharging your phone. So you get saved and your battery recharges, and then you start to understand who you are as a person. So that's definitely something we're going to address later on in the show. Samantha, we're getting to the close of the show. I did want to ask, what events do you have going on? Do you have any product out there? Or if somebody wanted to book you, anybody in the world wanted to book you, what would be a good way for them to get in contact with you?
Reach out to me. My email address would be the best thing. Yes, I'm on social media, but if you personally email me for any kind of booking, so my email is, you want me to go ahead with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the email is Samantha Bowling, and it's BOWLING. So it's like the sport. So it all runs together. Samantha Bowling at yahoo.com. That's my personal email address. Anybody can reach out to me and we can go from there and talk about things there. I have a YouTube channel, so you could find that under Miss MS, the abbreviation MS, Miss Samantha B. Hopefully that should bring up the channel. You can find me the same at Twitter with the Miss Samantha B, but it's at the Snowflake. And that's not a political reference. So there's that. You can find me on Facebook, Samantha L, my middle initial, Samantha L Bowling. And you can find, hopefully all those things should come up. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, guys, you got that information. She's currently in Memphis now. But I mean, if the price is right, she's probably willing to travel. We'll do poetry. But Samantha, once again, we really appreciate you being on the show and bringing the type of real talk that only you can bring. So that we love to keep the show hot, spicy, definitely real. So we appreciate all of those answers, coming from a real place. I mean, that's one thing that you will never mistake Samantha for, is being fake, or I ain't know what she meant. No, because she's gonna tell you what she meant, and there's not gonna be any doubt about it. But we want to just thank you so much for being on the show and taking out that time to speak to the people out here, because we're reaching people around the globe. So I mean, and it is going to at least touch one person. So we do want to thank you in that. And while we're thanking people, we want to thank WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network for giving us this type of platform to let ladies like us, people like us, come out and talk about their story, talk about the person that you see behind the microphone, because it is real life. We're living it every day, and we're writing it down. We also want to thank our logo creator, Treasured Memories Graphics, for just hooking us up with a really, really awesome logo. So please visit them at treasuredmemoriesgraphics.com. So we want to lead the people out there that do not have a relationship with God. We want to lead you in a sinner's prayer. It's very, very simple, and you can repeat after me. You can say, Lord Jesus, I repent of my sins. Come into my life. I make you my Lord and Savior. Now, with that simple prayer, we believe here on the show that you are born again. Please do two things after you say this prayer. Find a Bible-based church and keep God first place in your life, and he will take you to places you have never dreamed of. So once again, I am the Aquarius, Jessica Crenshaw. That is the lion-hearted Samantha Bowling of Memphis, Tennessee. This is Poetry Worldwide, and once again, we are giving poets a voice. Are you ready to be heard? Have a good one.